Here I'm using a couple different tools to mark center on both sides of the blank. I'm using an ice pick as an awl, but I'll take this simple device and scratch an X off of, or scratch a line off of all four corners. And then after doing that, I'll take the ice pick and mallet and just drive an indentation right dead center of that blank. And then we'll do it again on the next side. Alright, now that we've got the center marked, this is on the headstock, the spur center you see. It's also called a drive center. But that little spring tip fits nicely in that notch, and then you bring up the tailstock with the cone live center and run that directly in the center there. So now you have it perfectly centered on your lathe, and you want to make sure when you're driving that tailstock up that the spur center or whatever live center you're using grabs your material, your blank. Bring up the tailstock, and we're going to go ahead and put the tenon on. I already had it mostly done, but I just wanted to give this step to demonstrate kind of what that looks like with the square head carbide cutter. We'll take our drive center out, remount the blank, but not really tight off the jaws. You'll bring up your tailstock and set it, and then tighten your jaws all the way. And here, I'm just making the blank round. You got to work from it most of the time being round. Alright, now that we got the blank round, we're going to clean the face up and just make it nice and flat. What that does is that is going to end up being a finished side. So you want that to be pretty much set before you start sanding process. And then you want to replace the center, or the piece that you have in the tailstock. I can't think of it right now, but this is a Jacob's chuck with a 3/4 inch wide Forstner bit, and I marked a line there roughly with what I need the depth to be into the blank, so that it'll be ready to receive the shaving knife. So I'm taking the Forstner bit and I kind of overshot a little bit, just to make sure that we had enough depth. And after this step, we're going to whip the tailstock around and again use our square carbide cutter to finish flattening that face. You see the little lip right there. We're going to take this square cutter and widen the hole because the end of the shave brush is just a little bigger than 3/4 inches. So we take that square cutter and just open that mortise up a little bit. We're going to take the shave brush here and fit it, make sure everything works in there. Alright, so now that we got that all cleaned up in the mortise that'll receive the shave nut, we can bring back our cone center, live center on the tailstock, just to give some stabilization while we're turning the shape of the handle. And I'll start with the top of the handle. And the shape, really, if you're turning your own, is up to you. I tend to like a more simple, elegant shape. And then once I've got shape mostly where I want it, then I'm going to bring up the parting tool that I'm using. This one is the Easywood Tools new parting tool, the new model with a negative rake scraper on it. And then I just did that because that's the bottom of the shave brush now. And so I'm using the round carbide now to just kind of polish up the shape a little bit and kind of give that the bottom side a little curve in. Then I'm going to sand it, starting usually 80 or 120, going up through the grits to 400, if possible, reversing the rotation of your lathe between grits, but if you can't, that's okay too. So this is the final grit, and this is 400, and it's really nice silky feel on just about any material you've got on there. This is just a 50% lacquer thinner to sanding sealer. The brand I use here is Mylands, but there's lots of other ones. This is just to kind of help close up the grain and even out the finish. So I like to have the lathe running really slow or just by hand to apply it with a brush, and then make sure it's evened out before it dries, because it can get a little wavy. And once it's all dry, you will feel like it's not really rough surface, but just kind of like burrs and things like that. So you crank the lathe up to anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 RPM and lightly buff it off with a 4-aught Scotch-Brite pad. And now it's time to do the second step of the finish. This is called a Yorkshire grit, and it's a micro abrasive paste. And it basically acts, well, it does abrade the wood, but it starts at 400, and then it kind of like gets you into the thousands. It's super soft. It also has wax inside of it, so it acts as a finish in and of itself if you want it to. So you'll only do this one time, and then buff off. So you sand it, quote unquote, with a low RPM, 400 or so, and then you buff it all off with just really high speed. The final step of the finish in this that I like to use for these is a Hamster Sheen High Gloss Paste Wax. Works just like any other paste wax. You apply it. Don't need a whole lot. I probably use a little bit too much in this video, but really get it on there, and until it starts to get kind of hazy, and then crank your speed up and buff it off really gently, and it just comes to a really nice, brilliant shine. Like I said, you treat it just the same as any other paste wax. Alright, so now it's time to start the process of taking this shaved brush handle off the lathe. So I'm using the parting tool to take down that waste material as far as I'm brave, courageous enough to go, which usually isn't too far because I don't want it flying off and hit me. So I'm taking the pull saw here, Japanese pull saw, to detach the handle from the rest of the material. Here I'm turning what's called a jam chuck, and so you can jam your blank or the piece that you're working on onto this wooden chuck. It's the same, ideally the same material, but whatever, so that you can access the bottom of your piece or the item that you're turning. So that's all I've done here. It's just jammed it right on there. In this, I'm taking really light passes, and I have a really sharp side of the square carbide. So go too aggressive on removing sort of like the last part of the bottom, then it'll just pop off the jam chuck more often than you want. And same sanding and finishing process as the rest of the blank. In this particular one, was more of a demonstration than an actual one that I'm going to offer up for sale. But so you'll notice the bottom isn't quite as pretty as the rest. However, just for demonstrating kind of how we're doing this, and also didn't put my brand on there. And then really carefully pull that guy off. I I don't know why I didn't move the tailstock out of the way so I didn't pierce my hand, but there you go. Yep. All right. So next part of the process is we're going to glue the knot into the handle. I just have some of this type of super glue. I like it because it's got the brush on the end. I can, for this particular purpose, I'll just have to get some more of the glue. But you spread it all around in there on the inside, and I give it just the slightest turn as I'm installing it. I got a little super glue on the finish there. Another reason I'm probably not going to try and sell this one, but there you go. That's all there is to it. I've found the finish to be. I mean, I made one for myself, and I've been shaving with it, 2-3 times a week, and I find it to hold up to the elements, just as good as a synthetic. The finish that I use is wax based, so it's just got great protective qualities. Anyway, thanks for watching, John and Jake. Thanks for giving me the inspiration to get started. Cheers.